In tonight's Corner Office, eradicating poverty in America through strategies developed by investment banking. Our next guest, John Hope Bryant, has used more than $2 billion of private capital to build low-income homes, small businesses, and community development. And he says it will be the poor who will save capitalism. In fact, he has a book, How the Poor Can Save Capitalism. Joining us now is John Hope Bryant. Welcome to Arisexchange.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And the book's a bestseller this week.
Well, it's a terrific, congratulations. It's a terrific title. Tell us in a few seconds how the poor can save capitalism, why you believe that's going to happen.
They already are. You and me, when we were coming up, we had a cell phone, but it was a brick. It was a Motorola brick. It was 10 pounds going to your show, $3,000.
I remember.
Now, Africa will probably be a wireless continent. I mean, it'll probably be the first continent that jumps right over landline phones, and we'll have cell phones. In fact, about 700 million people today have cell phones.
And people at the lower end of the income spectrum are the ones with the cell phones.
You're right. Before they have running water, they've got a cell phone. And they're driving the growth of all the cell phone companies. Restaurants were toys for the rich. Cars were originally toys for the rich. Almost every category, it was the commoditization of those products.
Sure.
To the least of these God's children that allowed the markets to grow and shareholders to prosper.
And in the information technology where we are, as you said, commoditizing, getting this in the hands of people who did not have the power before, is going to make them powerful.
Well, no, that's part of the power. So we already have the consumer power, but we never got the memo. So in 1865, President Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. Before that, we know that. But what we don't know is he signed a piece of legislation called the Freedmen's Bureau Act that created the Freedmen's Bank. March 3rd, 1865. The Freedmen's Bank's mission was to teach freed slaves about money. So he thought the most important thing he could do
is financial literacy.
After fiscal freedom was to teach about the free enterprise system. He was killed 2 weeks later. The bank fell into disrepair. Literally, 100 years passes by. You know, you have Dr. King and my mentor Andrew Young, 1965. 68, King gets killed pursuing the Poor People's Campaign. Once again, 2 weeks later, he's killed.
To that point, then, are we doing a good enough job in financial literacy to the people who could benefit the most from it?
Because we're doing a horrendous job.
We're talking about income inequality here, but part of that is that the tools aren't being given to the people on the lower end of the income.
We're doing a horrible job. It's like having the bridges leading into Manhattan with people driving cars with no driver's license. We're driving the largest economy in the world, and we're not teaching anybody the language of money. And this is not a poor people's issue. Yep. If you're living in Manhattan and you're making less than $70,000 a year, you're struggling to make ends meet.
No kidding, yeah.
You're living in D.C., making less than $50,000 a year, you're struggling to make ends meet. So you're talking about half the country makes $50,000 a year or less with too much month at the end of their money. They can't go buy a refrigerator every 7 years like GE needs them to. They can't go buy a car every 3 to 5 years or lease it like the automobile manufacturers need them to. So we shouldn't be talking about a minimum wage that's government sponsored. We should be talking about a living wage that's free enterprise encouraged, because the more money you have, the more money you spend.
I was going to ask you that. How much is the government too involved here in sort of that safety net, which has to exist? But the result is, are we not giving anybody the information and tools to get out of there?
It's an overcorrection. Now, it's an understandable overcorrection because the markets capitalism needs bumpers. So, so we figured out from 2005, being conservative, really 2003 to 2009, capitalism needs bumpers. But you can overcorrect, and that's what's happened. Unless you have an 800 credit score now and a 30% down payment, you aren't getting a loan to buy a home. And we need people to buy homes. I don't care what anybody says.
Well, too much regulation. We talked about it earlier. Too much regulation on the banks.
Yes.
And is there too much of a push, like you said, for the minimum wage, which is important, or is too much
of a push? It's a wrong argument. It's a wrong argument. It shouldn't be an entitlement argument based out of charity. It should be an empowerment argument based on emerging market opportunities. What I'm saying is we're tapping down on the one engine that could drive economic growth.
Okay, so how do we get that empowerment there? What are the key tools to get us there?
Well, I list out 20. This is not a book of complaints. This is a book of solutions. There's 20 public policy solutions at the end of the book. One of them is very simple. I'm going to drive credit scores. So in a so-called poor neighborhood, but by the way, outside of military outlets, you have these check cashers also next to payday loan lenders, next to rent-own stores, next to title lenders, next to liquor stores. That's not racism. That's target marketing. Yep. They're targeting a 500 credit score customer.
Payday loans.
All of them. Basically, predatory financial providers. We are moving credit scores 120 points at Operation Hope. Nothing changes your life more than God or love than moving your credit score 120 points. So when you do that neighborhood by neighborhood, guess what? You're creating sustainable customers for banks, for credit unions, for financial service providers, folks who would actually pay their bills. So that's just one strategy. But all these big businesses that are hopefully advertising on a rise were once small ones. People forget that J.P. Morgan Chase was a guy named J.P.
And Goldman Sachs was Goldman on the corner.
Et cetera. UPS, a little guy with $100 in a bike.
God-loving credit scores. Terrific. Come back soon. John Hope Bryant, thank you so much. I know it went by quickly. Appreciate it. Tomorrow on Arisexchange, supporting small farmers in sub-Saharan Africa and why the global economy is dependent upon their survival. Let's take a look at the markets real quick. A record day on Wall Street. I'm Andrew Schmertz. Thanks for watching Arisexchange. That was terrific. I know about that.